In lesson 2.6 here, we're going to take a look at soil and compost. You are going to bring a lot of soil into your system. Here is a load that just came in of about 25 cubic yards. And I've got my little helper there working on getting that well distributed. We'll use 100 and 150 to 150 yards of compost in a season, or of soil in a season, which means we need space to store that soil as it comes in and the corresponding compost that gets produced after the tray has been harvested. We have a simple system where we just basically built a system or a big box here using pallets and covered them with some tarps. Here you see the size of the truck that's coming in. So you actually have to have access for a vehicle to come in as well. So this was actually a challenge for us. There was a very, very tight space, and there was some issues that we had and couldn't actually have some trucks come in. So yeah, knowing that you have access for the delivery truck is very, very important. So here's the bin when it's empty. Often when it's empty, we would clean it out, sanitize the tarps and whatnot, and get it distributed so the older soil gets used up first and the newer soil is coming in afterwards. This system did evolve for us, and we ended up bringing in soil in these 3 cubic yard bags. And a couple reasons for that is one is that we could bring these in with a crane truck and drop them right where they needed to be. And two, what was happening is when we had a big pile of compost or soil, the rodents were getting into it. And as soon as you have rodents in your soil sort of living in there and making nests, you're starting off potentially with a contaminated soil. And that was obviously something that we didn't want to have. So these totes have worked really well. It's a little more expensive because we're paying for each tote. But what we're getting there is peace of mind, and it actually keeps things a lot more organized and allows us to use the vertical space a little better. For the compost, we actually use a similar system to this. We just have another big bin like this, and so after the trays are emptied, they are harvested, they get dumped on that pile. They do break down fairly quickly, and then in our system, the compost leaves the system. And we actually have a bunch of gardeners and farmers that come by on a regular basis and take the soil from the site. It would be great if we could compost it and reuse it, but that is quite a big process, and I won't get into that now, but it comes with some challenges. One of them being that you need to make sure you're producing a pathogen-free soil, which can be a challenge when it's exposed like that. But if I was in a farm situation where we had some ground crops growing, once this soil was composted, I would actually then add it to my regular farm soil, and it would go really, really well there. We don't have that option because the ground we're growing in is not suitable for food production, so that's why people come and take it away. Another component of our soil storage is actually having space to store the trays, as I mentioned, once they're prepped. So here's the shed just adjacent to our tray prep area where we store a bunch of trays and stack them up. So when it comes time to seeding, we've got our trays ready to go, and we can do that very, very quickly. So it's just a very simple shed. This is just made out of scrap wood, and we could store hundreds of trays in there. So we usually prep a week's worth of trays at a time, so they're ready to go when we need them. And what this is doing is breaking up activities. If you need to prep 150 trays and then sow 150 trays, then stack those for germination, that's a lot of work at one time. So doing stuff in segments and separating them from other activities such as harvest and deliveries spreads the work over the week, segments things, and it makes it a lot easier to manage. Yeah, so in terms of the equipment, like I said, we need those big storage bins for both the soil and the compost when it's finished. The storage shed, which we use for the trays once they're prepped and ready to go. We have tarps to keep the piles covered. That's particularly important here in Vancouver, where we have a lot of rain, and that keeps the soils from getting saturated. We've got a multitude of shovels and gloves and stuff just to make things handling things a lot easier. So that's a look at soil and compost. It's the thing you are going to deal with the highest volume of, so you do need a good system to manage that.